Hey, it's me again, Nick at the Olympia School of Guitar. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you what I call the 4-minute drill. And the 4-minute drill is one of my very, very favorite ways to practice because, well, I'll explain why. Maybe you'll see why I like it so much. So, a little bit of background. There was a study that I read about in a book. I believe it was The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, but I can't be sure about that. But anyway, I read about this and I found this study somewhere. And what they did was they took two groups of musicians and they split them into, two groups. They had two groups of musicians. And one group did what was called block practice. And block practice was basically practicing one technique or one idea or one piece for an extended period of time, like 20 to 30 minutes or even longer. And then moving on to the next idea, and you practice that one for 20 to 30 minutes and so on. The second group of musicians was told to practice in 3 to 5 minute increments. So instead of practicing scales for half an hour, they would practice scales for like 5 minutes. And then they'd move on to playing arpeggios for 5 minutes, and then their etude for 5 minutes, and so on. And the results were really surprising. Basically what happened is the group that practiced in these smaller little intervals retained more of what they practiced over the long term. The group that practiced in the longer sessions, the 25, 30, 1 hour intervals or whatever, they retained less of what they had practiced. And basically what they kind of discovered is that when you practice one item for a long period of time, your brain basically gets tired. Your brain kind of gets bored of what it's doing, and it kind of just shuts down. And you stop receiving the benefit of what you're doing because you're doing the same thing over and over again. And the people who practice in these shorter intervals didn't experience that same sort of fatigue, this brain fatigue or whatever. So I kind of compare it to, if you got a test on Tuesday and you spend all day on Monday studying for that test, you're probably going to be able to regurgitate a bunch of that information on Tuesday, and maybe you do fairly well on the test. But on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you don't remember hardly anything that you actually studied on Monday. And that's because you tried to cram it all into one single session. So that's kind of what's going on in this larger kind of block practice that people tend to do. So that's why I like this shorter intervals, because it keeps you engaged. You can practice multiple things, and you will actually improve your playing faster by practicing this way. So it's very simple. Basically what you do is you're going to get a timer, and you're going to set it for 4 minutes. You could do 3 minutes or 5 minutes, but I like to do 4 minutes. Set it for 4 minutes, and then you're going to practice. And I would recommend you have 4 different items that you are going to rotate through, preferably items that are different from each other. So, you could do a riff, followed by a scale, followed by a song, followed by an arpeggio, or something like that. Something along those lines. Just 4 different things that you're working on, and every 4 minutes you switch to the next thing. You could do those in the same order, do item 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or you could randomize it. Or, and this is what I like to do sometimes, is let's say I want to get a lot of practice in on the one particular item, like a song. I'll still have 4 different items, or 3 items or 5. That's kind of flexible as well. And so I'll go from item 1 is going to be my primary item. So I practice number 1, and then I do 2. And then I go back and do number 1, and then 3, and then 1, 4, 1, 2, 1, 3. So I'm always going back to item 1 so that I can get a lot of practice in on that one item. But I'm not just practicing item 1 for the entire time, because then you get the brain fatigue and all that kind of stuff that you don't want. So this is a really good way to practice. I would highly, highly recommend you do this. Try it out and let me know how it goes. Again, I'm Nicholas, and I'm with the Olympia School of Guitar. My website is olympiaguitarlessons.com.